Yes, sir.
Excuse me. My name is Alan McAlpin. I'm at 5 Armstrong Road. I have a couple of questions. First one is, will there be language in the 2017 draft or final master plan allowing for a change or an amendment in permitted accessory uses or allowing for mixed use on land zoned OSGU? And I'm looking specifically at Chapter 95-27.
So your question is, you're just wondering
The
what...
question is, will there be language in the 2017 draft? And that the font of that question is on page 3 of the old master plan, where under municipal law. The plan must include a land use element which takes into account lots of things, including the relationship of the plan to any proposed zone plan and zoning ordinance. That's the font of the question. Will the 17 draft and will the 17 master plan offer a change to that issue?
So as I understand it, and you guys can elaborate, but this is a re-exam report. So what I'm expecting, and we may discuss this a little bit later, but that the issues and the things that we want to re-examine, if you will, look at, won't necessarily be decided in this report. So this report may say something like, we want the technical coordinating committee to look more carefully at OSGU zones, and maybe in particular to permitted accessory.
Yes, that's language. That's
right.
language.
So, but that's what the language would probably be in the report, as opposed to the actual solution or the actual recommendation. I think. I mean, that's. I don't know if you have anything more to add to that.
That's accurate, and we've actually had some substantive discussions here with regard to OSGU, not so much in terms of the list of permitted uses, but the fact that there are no accessory uses presently permitted, and perhaps even more importantly, there are no bulk standards that currently exist for the OSGU zone. So I think that this board, in terms of the draft document, is going to be in a position to recommend that those issues be basically studied, and if deemed appropriate, and obviously the re-examination goes to the governing body, we get that directive and may so act to actually make those zoning changes or direct the planning board to further investigate it.
Does that answer your question?
No.
You asked if there will be language in the re-exam report? I would say
Yeah, in other words, you asked for comments from the public on certain things, but then you said in your newsletter that anything would be open, and I'm looking for things that are not there.
Okay.
Right. The things that are not there are the things that keep me up at night. The things that are there, I know about. And this thing keeps me up at night because...
So why don't you give us your thoughts on it? I mean, that's what we're ready for.
There was an attempt about 4 years ago to have an amendment to this very particular article. And then Mayor Mancuso met with a bunch in Washington Valley and very graciously tabled that amendment, which would have changed the very issue I'm talking about. It's now 4 years. We're now re-examining things. Why is this issue part of the re-examination process? Why was it, is it left out for a reason? We're playing hide and seek? What's going on? So the reason why I bring it up is to ask the question, will there be language in the draft that deals with this issue? Yes or no? You must, if you're going to draft, you must.
I would say there is on that issue. There was, and I have to go back and look at the particulars with that item that came up 4 years ago. I think there was some language that was modified. I'm going to say going back to like the 90s, and to talk to what Paul was talking about, the accessory uses,
Right.
in particular in the OSGU zone. that, that was taken out of the ordinance and it would be an oversight, and we felt it should be back in there. And it talked about issues, and as Paul just said, it wouldn't change the uses that are allowed in the zone. And I think part of the concern goes back to, Springbrook had proposed like housing on site, which wasn't permitted, and I think that triggered a Board of Adjustment application because there's a use that's not allowed, and that use would continue to not be allowed. But
Zoning board.
yeah, if someone proposed something that's not permitted or not listed specifically in the OSGU, it would have to go to the zoning board. But it was more for other OSGU uses under like the schools or seeing eye or the golf courses, as far as what's normally happens on the property, like tennis courts that go in with a school or other uses along those lines. And that language had been removed, and we were going to look and to see specifically why it was removed and what the story was with that. But not changing the uses that are allowed in the OSGU zone.
You're not going to change use.
It was specifically to accessory uses.
No change of accessory uses?
No, the potential exists for the accessory uses. It was the primary uses that wouldn't change.
The primary uses, of
whatever's
course,
going on
will
there.
change. Because the primary use is the reason why it's there.
Right.
Right. But accessory uses or mixed use is the concern. And it was a concern 4 years ago. That remains the concern today.
And that wouldn't change, if someone was to propose housing in an OSGU zone, that's something that would go to the Board of Adjustment. And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, that's
You're not
that
wrong.
would, that's
You're
not
not wrong.
going to be permitted or allowed to change.
All right. So, thank you. Thank you all. I have one other question. Will there be language in the 2017 draft or final master plan altering the setback distance from waterways and established drains?
That was another one that's, we anticipate changing. When we adopted the wastewater management plan with the Township, the abbreviation WMP, DEP specifically asked us to add 3 ordinances onto our books. There was the riparian buffer ordinance, there was a stormwater ordinance, and there's another one that I'm drawing a blank on, but specifically the riparian buffer ordinance called for a 75-foot setback to streams, and that was higher than the setback that DEP requires. Standard for an intermediate resource value stream is or intermediate resource value wetland is 50 feet. They had us adopt an ordinance that pushed it 75 feet. It was more stringent than DEP's requirements. DEP has since relaxed that requirement. The county is now handling the wastewater management plans, and municipalities are adopting an ordinance that mimics the DEP standard of 50 feet. So the only change that I'm aware of, although I didn't do a side-by-side comparison of the new ordinance that DEP has put out to the county, it's that 75 feet is reduced to 50 feet to be consistent with DEP. To my knowledge, that's the only change in that riparian buffer conservation zone, or
When the DEP made that change, did they have in hand a study of the environmental effects of, say, silting in this township?
I don't know what the DEP has,
So
studies.
would you go ahead with something like that without due consideration to the issue of silting? Silting has to do with soil, and it's not the same everywhere. It's my understanding. What may work in most places doesn't work in all places. That's my understanding.
Well, I mean, our goal is to follow the DEP's standards on that, and if they've done some separate study,
I'd love to read it,
I'm not, you'd have to check with them, I'm not familiar with all that.
but you don't have one. You don't have a particular study.
No, we typically rely on the permits that are issued by DEP. I mean, they're kind of a higher authority.
But you don't know whether they've studied Marsh Township in this regard.
I don't know if they have.
My follow-on question is, why proceed with something if you don't know?
it's a standard that we want to be consistent with what DEP has issued. And I don't think they necessarily look at sedimentation standards for that 50-foot buffer. I think it's more of a reflection of the protection for wetland areas.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you.